Hello there, I'm the Biblical Translator, and today's scripture, well, it's not a scripture, it's actually an inspiration. Occasionally I have a thought when I wake up, and I write down the thoughts that I have. And that's what I'm doing today. I'm just sharing with you some thoughts. Why doesn't God destroy those who do us harm? From biblical days, we have seen God create miracles, and the witnesses still lacked faith. It did not make them amend their ways. It is easy to question if there is a God, because bad things are happening to people around the world. But we need to check our behaviour as humans. How many of us, when good things happen, we forget the bad moments of yesterday or yesteryear and people who got us through it? Even the film of Bob Marley, One Love, demonstrated his glory, how he credited the songs, or how he created the songs, and it did not pick up on the people who inspired him or helped him through his journey, apart from little snippets of Rita supporting him. When ordinary people become celebrities, they seem to forget what it was like to be ordinary. Many become controlling, arrogant, entitled, and insensitive, similar to those in power. When they abuse it, they forget what it was like to feel powerless. And while we would like to believe a way from God's hand will destroy the wicked, we all have the potential to be wicked given a certain set of circumstances. We are reaping what we sow, bathed in ignorance, consumed by materialism, seduced by power and influence, susceptible to greed, absorbers of misinformation, and followers, not leaders. Afraid to break the mould, afraid to be different, afraid to set an example, afraid to stand out or stand up because we know the consequences of our actions. But whether we die today or tomorrow, we still die, so why not die knowing you have done something worthwhile? Why not die knowing you have stood up for something you believe in? Christians are persecuted because many of them try to enforce good, and that is not what the evil one wants. He wants an evil and selfish world. And that's what I woke up with today because, I was trying to make sense of, I'm always saying, oh, God, I don't want to die in pain. I want to have a peaceful death. And then I thought about my mother, who was a very dignified, elegant woman and such an independent woman. And she had a moment when she was in hospital. She's dead now, but she had a moment when she was in hospital where she said she died and her spirit went into the home she'd bought, and it was in the house, and she could see certain things. She could see the tenant that she had there, and she could see his visitors. And she said, but it was a very kind of calming feeling. And then I don't know what happened, but she came back to life. I don't know if they resuscitated her or what, but she came back to life. When she came back to life, her last days were left totally dependent on others. That dignified, elegant woman had shrunk to like just a piece of flesh lying on the bed. And I wondered, when so many of us are afraid to die, some of us should be afraid to live. Many of us are afraid to live and afraid to die. But we have to have a choice. If we live, we have to live fully. We have to live in a way where we stand up for our principles and our morals and what we believe in. And we cannot be cajoled by a system or by people when we know deep down inside things are not right. But we're just afraid to be that person who stands up or who stands out. I was doing jury service last week, and I was writing notes as a juror, you're allowed to write notes about, what you hear. So I was writing down all the inconsistencies, and I was alarmed because nobody else even took out the notebook. When we were given a break, I said to a couple of the people, well, I said to two people. One, I said, I asked her why she wasn't writing anything down, and she goes, "Oh well, they're going to summarise it at the end anyway," which means she was going to be totally reliant on the information they were giving her, which meant to me she was a follower. And the second person I asked, she said, "Oh no, nobody else was writing," and I felt embarrassed. I didn't want to draw attention to myself and start writing because nobody else was writing. I said, "I was writing." She said, and she kind of brushed that off. But it showed me that, people are afraid to stand out and stand up. Now, they'd prefer to send the defendants, or the whatever you call them, I think they're called defendants, to jail, because they're not listening, they're not paying attention, they're not writing notes so that they can go back to it. They don't know how long that case is going to last. They don't know, they can't rely on their memory when you've got so many different witnesses. So how is that going to help the individual just because they're too embarrassed or too lazy or can't be bothered to make an effort and write down a few notes to jog their memory when it comes to deliberation? But I'm saying that because that seems to be the mentality of people. Not wanting to stand up, not wanting to have strength, not wanting to have courage to believe, not wanting to have faith, not believing in good things. And even when good things happen, they take it for granted. Why should God have mercy on people like that? Why should God have mercy and rescue people who are so unappreciative, who are so damn lazy? Why should he? Why should he have compassion for people who just cannot be bothered, who don't want to make an effort, who think they can just lie back and say, "Oh, God, give me this, God, give me that," and he's going to do it? And then when you see other humans harming other humans, you're saying, "Oh, why doesn't God intervene?" He doesn't intervene because of our nature as humans. We're very, very selfish and lazy. Well, some of us are. We're not all like that. But, we appreciate a good thing in a second, and then in a couple of minutes you've forgotten about it. Like people who win money. They forget about all their friends, and they don't want to give anything here. They don't want anybody to know. They don't want anybody to ask them for anything. They forget that they were in that position where they didn't have. And so many people are like that. Like Jesus when he rescued them in the boat. For one minute, "Oh, you're a glorious God. You rescued us. Even the winds and the waves, they obey you." The next minute, he's telling them, "Stay awake, and I'm going to be crucified, and you're going to deny me." And they're like, "Oh no, we don't believe that." They've got such short memories. Humans have such short memories, and it's almost like it. On the one hand, it's kind of paradoxical, because on the one hand, you are supposed to live in the moment, and it's only the moment that matters. But the past or your history is a series of moments, and each moment has credibility, and each moment has brought you where you are today. So each moment is significant, and you have to count those moments and make sure that each moment you can look at that moment and say, "Yes, I have done well." And God can say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." But when every day you wake up and you just take your day for granted, you take your breath for granted, you take getting up and going down the stairs for granted, instead of giving thanks and trying to make a difference and trying to pull people in and make them better than they were the day before, people just cannot be bothered. So why should God be bothered? If you can't be bothered, why should he? And I guess that's all I've got to really say today. Well, not today. That was just my inspiration.